Good evening, everyone. I'm Sister Claire McGowan, Executive Director of New Pioneers for a Sustainable Future. And tonight we are presenting our 12th Moving Forward Forum. Every quarter, New Pioneers presents a panel of local people who bring their insights and their wisdom on a particular topic to the community, not only the community gathered here, but the community who is our audience for Central Kentucky TV. So tonight we're here to talk about agritourism, the opportunities and challenges that agritourism presents. But before we do that, I'd just like to make two quick announcements. On Thursday, March 5th, New Pioneers for a Sustainable Future will be celebrating our 10th anniversary. Almost impossible for me to believe. And we're having a gala dinner at Spalding Hall at St. Catherine College beginning at 5:30. And there will be a locally grown dinner followed by a presentation of 2 awards. So tickets are available if people are interested in coming. Call the New Pioneers office at 336-5070. That is 859-336-5070. And then we also want to announce that the second annual Springfield Green Festival will take place on Saturday, April 25th from 10 to 4 around the Springfield Farmers Market. We did the first one last year and people loved it. It was a wonderful day and a wonderful event, and we think it's going to be even better this year. So I just wanted to let everybody know that those 2 things are coming up. So for tonight's panel, we have 3 excellent panelists. The first is Daniel Carney, who is the Executive Director of the Springfield, Washington County Economic Development Authority. Daniel grew up here in Washington County and brings a great heart and a great mind and a great spirit to the endeavor of economic development. Our second panelist is Ann Karsner, the co-owner of Horseshoe Bend Winery in Willisburg, Kentucky. And Ann and her husband Bob have built a wonderful agritourism business that we're looking forward to hearing a lot more about tonight. And our third panelist is Judy Allred, who is the co-owner of Serrano Alpaca on Booker Road in Springfield. And Judy has not only a wonderful herd of, Judy and her husband Ron have a wonderful herd of alpacas, 3 Great Pyrenees dogs, and a great shop which is full of beautiful Kentucky crafts, including alpaca yarns and alpaca products, but other things as well. So if you haven't been to their shop yet, you want to stop in and look for gifts or wonderful things for yourself. So, with no further ado, I would like to invite Daniel to begin and talk to us about your perspective, Daniel, on agritourism, its opportunities and challenges here in rural central Kentucky.
Thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled to talk about this topic that I think is certainly a growing topic, something that's really blossoming in this area, and that we're seeing, change, and agritourism encompasses so many things. And I appreciate you letting me go first, since I'll defer to the experts on a lot of this. But as the director of the Economic Development Authority, we focus on recruitment of new business and investment into the community, retention, of what we already have existing, and then on workforce development. And there's no question that agriculture and tourism play an important role in all 3 of those things, and certainly agritourism. I mean, anytime you talk about tourism, you're talking about bringing people into your community. So that's new investment that helps people see your community, and so agriculture and tourism are certainly important to SWEDA. I think sometimes the misconception is that economic development focuses on manufacturing and large industry. But that's not the case, and we're trying to make sure that people know that any any business, any investment that goes on in this community is certainly engaged in economic development. And economic development encompasses so many things, including tourism. So this is certainly an important topic, and I'm glad to be here. Just a little bit about myself. I mean, I'm not any different than anybody else that you probably meet that grew up in central Kentucky. I grew up on a family farm of about 150 acres, which is still going to be about your average size probably of a family farm. And of course, what do we raise? We raised cattle and tobacco. So agriculture is very important to me, and it's been interesting for me to grow up and kind of watch how this region has transitioned agriculturally, especially growing up on a tobacco farm and seeing the changes that we've had with that. So to me, watching agriculture, it's kind of like watching how have we moved beyond tobacco. You moved away from that guaranteed market that was there every year, and that was important to my family. And I think as a region, we've done a great job of moving away from that, and agriculture, or agritourism rather, has played a role in that. It hasn't replaced tobacco, but it's a supplement. Tobacco is still prevalent. I was looking today, and I don't have numbers to compare it to 10 years ago, but it was over $400 million of tobacco sales in the state of Kentucky last year. So it is still something, but it's kind of in decline, slowly. And like I say, that guaranteed market, but it is still something that we're doing. But certainly we've seen a transition. And what that's brought is different opportunities, like agritourism, like we're seeing with our other panelists, with alpacas, grapes, and wine. Different types of livestock, different types of crops. Like I say, I think the region has really done a good job at diversifying itself agriculturally and modernizing itself agriculturally. I guess when I think of agriculture, I always come to the question: is it declining? Is farming in general is that in decline? And that's a scary thought, because that's our food, that's our life. And so when you kind of look at it, and I've stepped away from it now, not living on a farm, and not being engaged as I was growing up. So it kind of thinks, well, maybe it is in decline. But then when you look at the numbers, I think maybe that paints a different picture. I just did a brief survey of land use. Land use in Kentucky, it's still just over 50% in the state of Kentucky is devoted to farmland. Well, if you look at Marion, Nelson, and Washington County, it's over 70% in those three counties. So you're talking about 20% higher in this region. So that tells me that agriculture is still very prevalent in this region. And, I kind of breathe a sigh of relief, because agriculture has been such an important part of the history of Washington County, where I grew up, in the whole area. And it's got to be a part of our future as we move forward. And then even looking at where we are as far as, a monetary thing. I mean, that was always a discussion. Can a farmer make a living? And if we look at cash receipts last year, or not last year, but the most recent numbers we have for 2013, it was $5.6 billion in the state of Kentucky, and that's up 17% from 2012. So, as prices climb, that number goes up, but it still tells you that, agriculture is not going away, luckily, and it's here to stay. So, as agriculture continues to grow and prevail, agritourism is certainly going to follow suit. And if you look at how agritourism has grown, it's kind of probably parallel to that decline of tobacco, and you'll see agritourism climbing, because as I said earlier, I think it's something that can supplement. And in Kentucky, we have a very good balance. We're probably 50% crops and 50% livestock, and I think that's very good. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And speaking of eggs, I mean, I was looking today, what is our biggest cash receipt on that $5.6 billion? Well, it's poultry and eggs. And I wouldn't have thought that. Beef cattle's on down the list. I believe, corn, soybeans, all that is mixed in, but poultry and eggs is at the top of the list. So, one thing that kind of stands out to me in the transition from agriculture for economic development, now what we look at with economic development when we're trying to attract new businesses, we look at the workforce. And what we talk about with workforce now is a lot of soft skills. So that's, work ethic, responsibility, communication. Well, 15 or 20 years ago, we had the best workforce development system there was because everybody was either growing up on a family farm or they were helping out during tobacco season. And so, that work ethic, responsibility, to put food on the table for the family was there. So that's kind of one of the things I've seen maybe where that's what made me think agriculture has declined. But I don't think it's declined. I think it's just changed. It's evolved. And it's just interesting. I try to think all the time, from a workforce development perspective, because that plays such a key role into what I do. Try to think all the time, how has this changed and how have we gone away from some of these skills? And I think agriculture and farming has a direct correlation to that. But to get back on topic a little bit and talk specifically about tourism, I think tourism in the state of Kentucky in general is up. And I think a lot of that is due to the bourbon industry. And the reason I mention that is because in this region of central Kentucky, I think we are in a prime location for that. That tourism from the bourbon industry is happening all around us. So I think we need to think about how can we capitalize on that. I think maybe people are coming here and they're getting to Kentucky for the bourbon, but that's not the only reason they're here. I think they want to see everything we have to offer. So whether it's a winery or an alpaca farm or some kind of fiber processing, I think we need to focus, how can we capture and show them not just the bourbon, but everything we have to offer. And, in conjunction with that, we've seen a big move, I think, across the country in the push to fresh and local food. Let's get away from the beef that's, with antibiotics. Let's get some naturally fed beef and natural produce that hasn't been, that's been had natural fertilizer to help it grow. And we're seeing that a lot with the Kentucky Proud movement. I think that's certainly a component of agritourism. Kroger stores, you can go to a major grocery chain now and buy Kentucky Proud. And so I think that certainly is a good sign as we move towards that. Louisville recently announced that they're going to spend several $1 million on over 20 acres of a food hub, is how they call it. And so it's almost like similar to the tobacco business. They'll accept all this fresh, locally grown produce, and you'll take it to one spot like you would a tobacco warehouse to sell. They'll also have a demonstration farm of a couple acres on site. So if you're interested in growing your own vegetables or livestock, or even some fruits, you can go there and actually learn and see that happening. You can go buy local produce, and they'll have a food bank. I think that is a model that we could see. Why can't that work throughout the state? Maybe not to the scale that they have in Louisville, but I think there's a real interest and a tourism interest to see how people are growing their own food, how people are, living a more healthy, more sustainable life through, how they're raising their livestock, how they're raising their vegetables. So, I think we're seeing that push, and I think that'll continue to blossom in the coming years. And then, another thing I think we talk about locally is adventure tourism. We have a great reputation for hunting here. We have great streams for canoeing. Is there a way that we can incorporate, I talked about bourbon already, adventure tourism with our agritourism? And I think so. We have beautiful landscapes, and that's part of that adventure tourism. Well, I think we do skydiving here that a lot of people don't know about. So it's all about wrapping all that stuff together, in my opinion, and letting people know, what we've got to offer. And I think, that's kind of where my office comes in is what are we doing locally to promote what we've got? And I certainly think we can do more, and that's why I made that point in the beginning, that we're not just engaged in industry and manufacturing. Sure, we want to create jobs, we want to create investment, but the entrepreneur, the small business person, and that certainly includes any farmer, anyone engaged in any agribusiness. We need to be promoting that because for whatever reason, we do have people coming into the area, and while they're here, we want to let them know everything that we have to offer. So I definitely think that's important. One of the things that kept coming up in one of the things that kept coming up in some of the statistics I was looking at, it was talking about the availability of broadband to farms, and we look at that a lot because internet broadband is such an important tool today. And my numbers tell me that over 90% of Washington County has at least 3 megs or higher. Well, now 3 megs isn't going to get you a whole lot, but it will get you internet. But when I looked at farms, what farms had access to internet, that number was lower. And when we talk about agritourism, I think that's really important. So I think that's something we need to continue to focus on. If you don't have access to the internet in today's world, it's really hard to get your message out there. So broadband is certainly an important component that I think you might not always think about because we maybe take it for granted. But overall, I think agritourism is important because it can build relationships with the local community and agriculture, and it gives people that connection. It gives them the connection to the food that they eat, the wine that they're drinking, the animals that they're interested in or consuming through livestock. So I think that's why it's such an important component if we can continue to promote just giving people that connection to what is such a life-giving thing as agriculture. So I'll defer to the experts, as I said now.
Thank you, Daniel. You've given us a really excellent broad scope picture of the potential of agritourism. Ian, would you like to pick up from there and continue to paint that picture for us?
Agritourism has a ripple effect, as Daniel was saying, just throughout the whole community. I have had people come to my farm for wine. Actually, it was a couple from Pennsylvania who was going from Nashville back home to Pennsylvania, and they came to the farm before we were open. It was a Sunday. We're not allowed to open until 1 o'clock. So I said, why don't you go to the corner market and have some lunch? I said, they have the reputation for having the best hamburger in the state. And they did, and then they came back and they got their wine. So while they were there, they perhaps even filled their tank with gas. But it just goes wide and is not only for the entrepreneur who's doing it, but it does have a community effect. It isn't an easy life because you're at the mercy. If you're depending on agritourism, you're at the mercy of people coming to your door. So you have to guide them and lead them there. And that's where the internet and the broadband come in. And Kentucky has so many resources to help the entrepreneur. We have the extension office. When we first came to Washington County, we connected with the extension office, and they were very instrumental in helping us plant our vineyard and get the grapes growing. They introduced us to the Small Business Administration, who helped us write a business plan and develop the economics of the business we wanted to have. Then, as we got along a little further, we discovered KCARD, the Kentucky Center for Agricultural Development, will help you again with any business situations you have, and it also guides you towards applying for grants, federal as well as state grants. And the Governor's Office of Ag Policy. They have been very instrumental in helping us progress down this road to have the winery and the grapes. And now they have resources at the University of Kentucky that help us with our individual product, help us with the grapes and the wine. So the community support has been wonderful. And, you know, no man is an island. You don't do it by yourself. Judy?
That wasn't 10 minutes.
Oh, well, let me think.
We're relatively new to Washington County. We got here at the end of October of 2010, and actually timing-wise it was perfect because it gave us the next few months to kind of identify what we wanted to do and what we wanted to be as an agritourism venue. During that time, as Ann mentioned, there are lots of resources we discovered to help us along that path, and we wanted to find out what other agritourism type venues were in the area. Knowing that there are a number of other alpaca farms in the area, they weren't doing the type of tours that we envisioned. We wanted to have a hands-on experience where people can come and feed the animals, they can get their hands on them, touch them, see what it's all about. We wanted it to be an educational experience where they learn about the fiber, how it gets processed, and what we do with almost 200 pounds every year. And we wanted it to be fun. So as we started developing a plan to build a facility and get some fencing done and do some things like that, it was very instrumental to have help from the various organizations, Department of Agriculture, Kentucky Farms Are Fun, K-Card again, Farm Bureau. All of these places were very helpful in giving us information and supporting us in our endeavor. So we then established a marketing plan. How are we going to get our name out there? Because Springfield really isn't a huge destination like Lexington or Churchill Downs. So we decided that the best way to do it would be through promoting our farm through brochures, business cards, our website. We tried media advertising and that didn't work well at all. Most of the tours that I get, which range in size from 10 to 110, are finding us through our website. So we've focused a lot of our efforts on getting it updated and more user-friendly. We decided too that another way to get our name out there was to participate in various festivals. And so the first couple of years we did that pretty frequently, and now have picked and chosen the ones that bring us the most residual business. And sometimes it's just somebody Googling a yarn shop and they're visiting the area. And I had a lady from Detroit who she accidentally broke a pair of knitting needles and she was wanting a pair and there was no place to get them. So she Googled it and said, "Can I come?" Well, she got her needles and she also bought some yarn. So there's different ways of getting people to your venue, but we're finding that to get the tours in here, we're going to have some help through the tourism departments. I can't do it, as Ann said, I can't do it by myself. What happens there is, as Ann mentioned about the ripple effect, what happens is I have 110 people from North Carolina. You take those 110 people and they tell 2 of their friends about what a good time they had. I'm hoping that I'll get some more customers and some more tours out of North Carolina, and Detroit, and Dayton, Ohio, and Columbus, Ohio, and Campbellsville. So every time we have a group there, no matter what size, if one person tells 2 more, I have a 50-50 chance of having another group come. Whether it's an individual, a couple, or a family, or a big tour, we don't care. We just love promoting the animals. The one challenge we do have, I think, besides the marketing is in constantly trying to create new alpaca products. Something different, keeping something different in a small store all the time. And most recently, we make our own felt, which is like a textile. It's made out of alpaca. And we recently decided to get into the pet business. So 23 alpacas and 3 dogs wasn't enough. We decided we'd make pet beds and pet coats utilizing the alpaca and have been promoting that. That's our latest thing. We got those in just at the first part of October. Next year it'll be something else. People have a good time because we tell them we use everything, and that includes the manure. We even have pocket tea bags so that you can make manure tea. And a lot of people look at me like, really? When I explain what they do, you put it in a bucket, let it steep in the sun for a couple of days and water your plants, they get it. And it's much less expensive than some of the commercial fertilizers that are on the market. This coming year, I'm hoping to expand our marketing efforts. I think that's the biggest part of agritourism and getting people in the area. We bring those people in, and like Ann mentioned, she sent them down to the local burger shop and they probably gassed up their tank. Well, I know for a fact that 110 people from North Carolina went to Mordecai's. I know for a fact that the Model T Ford Club that was here also went to Mordecai's for lunch. So we really love having tours and being able to send them into town to see the Lincoln statue, to visit our restaurants, to visit our shops, and to see what else is here. I think that agritourism has been a great fun thing for us to do. We enjoy it, we love teaching, we love sharing the animals and all the joy that they bring us. And people say, I like to tell people, my profession is accounting, but my passion is my alpacas.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ian and Judy. Excellent presentations. Let's take maybe 10 minutes or so to talk among ourselves about what we've heard from each other, insights that strike you, or questions that you have, or possibilities that might develop that come to you as you listen to each other. You know, the whole, what you brought out, Daniel, about we all, especially in the rural areas, we really need economic development. There's no doubt about it. And the traditional ways of trying to bring in another factory and another large industry are getting more and more difficult to do. So entrepreneurship is really going to continue to be more and more important in economic development. And you two are excellent examples of fine entrepreneurs with your partners. So, you know, what would you say to the audience about, you know, say there's somebody who has some farmland and loves to farm. What would you say are maybe the best opportunities for somebody to start thinking about when it comes to developing more agritourism businesses? Do any thoughts come to you that you might seed the future with?
Yes, we'd love to see another winery or 2 or 3 because of cluster marketing. People would get off at the same exit if there were 3 or 4. When they're doing winery tours, they could just go bop, 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 instead of spending all day driving. And so you can find one for me, Daniel.
I think what you mentioned earlier and what a lot of people don't realize is that there really is a lot of help out there. You know, and so for me, it's about knowing what those resources are. Small Business Development Center, you know, you mentioned the Extension Office. The state is really supportive in these endeavors and helping you set up a business plan and different things like that. So, you know, if you have an idea, I'll listen to it. And I think there's a lot of people out there that would be willing to help and support you. And I've heard some crazy ones, and sometimes the crazy ones are the ones that work the best. So, you know, I think definitely there's help out there, and you know, my office just being one of many that would be glad to work with anybody from an entrepreneurship standpoint to get them up and running in the community, for sure.
Well, and one thing Judy said when she said, you constantly revise your marketing plan.
Sure.
And you need to get something different all the time out there in front. And the mass media is the best advertisement. That and road signage. Having signs so people can find you.
When you say mass media, do you mean social media?
I mean,
Or
well,
newspaper and radio and TV?
no, electronic media.
Yeah, yeah.
Electronic media has worked the best for us.
Same here. I'd have to say 98% of the people who come to our farm, whether individuals or groups, find us on the internet. Which is why we've put so much into revising, and we're continually updating it. I have a webmaster that's constantly updating. We're going to be adding, the next thing on the agenda will be to add a photo gallery. So there's always something different, and the photos will change periodically or be added to at the very least.
Excellent. I had a question just based on some of the things that you both said, and I'm always thinking about, you know, I talked about, you know, the local community doing more for our entrepreneurs like you and to bring more people in, and especially when you talked about the 110 visitors. You know, is there an issue with lodging because that's limited in the community, or is there, you know, do you think, well, if Washington County had more lodging or more restaurants, I could attract more, or are there any obstacles, you know, that...
I've not seen that from the groups that I've had.
Okay.
Most of them are staying either in Bardstown or up in Lexington, and they're doing like a whole day trip.
Sure.
So they would start, the Model T Ford Club did stay here.
Okay.
It's the Springfield area.
Yeah, I remember seeing those.
The other groups were, one group was staying in Bardstown. I'm not sure where the other one was staying. I believe it was Bardstown or Danville, one or the other.
Sure.
But they planned their tours, because our tours last anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how many people we have and how many questions we get. So most of the tours we do start in the morning. They leave our venue, go to the next venue, or to lunch, whichever, depending on what time they get there, and then to the next venue that they're going to visit and move on from there. So I've not heard anyone in our tours say anything about lodging being an issue.
I have.
Okay.
Because people, when they come out for our dinners from Louisville, even Lexington, Cincinnati, we have people driving down from Cincinnati, they want to stay
Right.
real close to where we are so they can have a nice meal and not worry about driving back.
Right.
So it's, that would certainly help if there were more rooms available.
Yeah, I mean, I think with tourism venues, I mean, they all have to work together. So the whole hospitality industry plays an important role. So that's kind of what I wonder sometimes. Do we have enough to support, you know, all the venues?
And of course, you're doing an evening event,
An evening event, yes.
which is all different than
Sure.
my doing a day
Sure.
or morning event.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the potential for somebody who is actively farming full-time to say, on Saturdays and Sunday afternoons, we're open for people to come and help us take up hay or take care of the animals, or, you know, there are people in cities who have this fantasy that they'd love to be on a farm and see what it really is like to be on a farm. Do you think there's any realism in that for farmers around here who need a little extra income to say, well, we could open one day a week and that's all, so we're not open on the other days? Or does it have to be pretty much a full-time endeavor?
You would probably be more successful, I would say, if it's more of a full-time endeavor. Let's say carve out 2 days a week, you're not going to be open. But if people are going to drive for a vacation, a working vacation, or which to them is a hobby vacation, I think they want more than just 1 day. They want 2 or 3 or 4. And a lot of times, and being family friendly would help. But they're doing this in Europe. I've read about vacations in Italy where you go and you work on the farm and then you eat in the kitchen with the family.
People will actually pay you to help work on your farm if you figure out the right angle.
And actually people will pay you to let them pick your grapes. In Texas, they're charging something like $65, they give you dinner, and you can come. You're allowed to pick the grapes. If it works, don't knock it.
Gee, it makes me wonder how much we could get paid to have them scoop our poop.
Good idea.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Growing up on a farm, it's hard for me to imagine paying somebody to go work on their farm. I do think there's probably a niche market there. It's about kind of like we talk about marketing and finding those people. But, I've met people along the way that think it's just fascinating that I grew up on a farm, and they just really want to ask a lot of questions. And like you said, they want to get that experience. So. There might be an opportunity for that. Like I think it's a real niche, so it might be hard to find them. But yeah, that would be interesting. But then that goes back to my point. Do they have a place to come out, and can they stay in the house and get the whole experience? That's what people want, I think, is to get that whole experience. If it's a day trip, sure, but it kind of comes to that whole, sleeping and spending the whole weekend or whatever it is. So.
Well, and I think if you get into that realm where you're going to have guests and you're going to be feeding them and they're paying you, you've got some different legal issues within the state to deal with as well. And those can be, if you're going to do it as a hobby, 1 or 2 days a week, a weekend or whatever, it may not be worth the hassle of getting, I don't know, you may have to have a commercial kitchen to be able to do that, to feed the paying guests. I'm not sure what all would be involved, but I think it would be fairly extensive, which would be prohibitive if you're not going to do it as a 40-hour a week or 70-hour a week full-time job.
Anything else that you want to say to each other? Shall we open up to the audience?
I hadn't thought of that point of it, but you're right. It's very interesting.
Well, we had looked at doing a few things on the farm, and we found it just wasn't going to work. Not to the extent that we're talking about here, but in terms of food preparation and things like that, it just wouldn't work for us.
It just strikes me as I listen to you all that the agritourism business will expand exponentially depending on how many more people decide to join in. Because the more activities and types of businesses that are in one location, the more people are going to want to come and do 2 or 3 things in one day. On sheep sharing days, some people would love to come and watch how sheep are sheared. And then go have lunch someplace, and then maybe go on to the winery for a glass of wine before they head home. But the more little businesses we can develop, the better it's going to be for everybody.
It's also going to take, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think it's also going to take a community effort where the local businesses that are here now refer their guests to the other venues in the area, such as the winery. So if somebody's down in one of the shops downtown and the tourist says, what else is there to do?
Sure.
I think it's important for us to make sure that those businesses know that Ann does tours, that we do tours. There's these other venues to at least explore a little bit more in depth what Springfield and Washington County is all about, and Williamsburg.
Absolutely.
Is there an existing list of all the agritourism endeavors in Washington, Marion, and Nelson counties?
You can get onto the Kentucky Farms Are Fun, and if you're registered with them, you're on there.
Okay.
And I've gotten several
They're all
referrals
listed.
from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a free thing.
I think one of the things locally that maybe the Tourism Commission has done is put together a booklet that you can go to City Hall. I think there's one at Springfield Inn that, if you're there, you can actually, and I think they tried to get them maybe even some of the gas stations and things like that you can actually flip through and see the attractions as you're passing through. So I think there is an effort, there.
New Pioneers thinks a lot about the future of this area in terms of sustainability and how much better it would be if the major development in this area went toward these kinds of healthy businesses rather than bringing in industries that are going to poison the air and the land or huge shopping malls that pave over the land. I mean, this would be, in my mind, a much better future for this area if we could go in that direction, a much more sustainable future. All right, audience, what would you like to say or ask or comment on or question? Joe?
Well, when Hal Good had your position, I had always just assumed that he was more involved in trying to bring more industry into the area. And so it was enlightening tonight to hear you talk about your expanded role. I don't know if it's expanded or you expanded or what, but it seems more open to us, and
Sure.
it's great to hear. I don't know if other people in Washington County are aware of what you're now entitled or able to do. Hopefully that gets out.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, I've been in this position, it's almost 2 years, and it's been a real learning experience. And I think, to your point, I need to get the word out more. And kind of, you know, as our focus shifts to entrepreneurship and you know, certainly agriculture as well, you know, definitely I need to work on getting that word out. And like I said, I think it's a misconception for whatever reason that we're just focused on industry and manufacturing, and that's certainly not the case. I mean, some of the best businesses that happen in small communities like this, you know, start with one or two people, or you know, start on a family farm or whatever it is. So that's certainly a focus of what we're trying to do. And one of the biggest things that we can do for our economy is diversify it. And so through entrepreneurship, through agriculture, certainly that's a way to do that. And I think there's a happy medium to continue to promote agriculture and entrepreneurship, and then continue to work with the industries that we have. We have some really good ones that have provided a lot of jobs. Our unemployment rates are down. So now it's that time to, you know, look at what we've got, support it, and, you know, create kind of an entrepreneurship hub, you know, if you will, in any way that we can.
Any suggestions for, I guess for lack of a better word, to kind of make things hip, you know, for younger tourists, as you would put it, you know, like that. Most kids my age are not going to want to go to the winery, or we may not be interested in the bed and breakfast setting type idea. But some stuff with music festivals of that nature.
Sure.
Just some ideas of how young people can be involved in this, because this is, just as agriculture as a whole is growing old, so is this is a new idea, but many young people are not on board yet. Just some ideas.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. It's something that we talk about a lot. Collaboration is huge for small communities like this, and we talk about that a lot. I mean, especially since we have two colleges right here with St. Catherine and ECTC. How are we engaging, you know, those students and engaging them at a level that they're getting involved in the community and that they're staying in the community? I mean, we want them to make a life here after they pursue their education or whatever they're here to pursue. So that's a very valid point. I think it's something that we do talk about a lot, and you know, we've tried some different things. I think we did the Main Street program did Friday Night Live last year, where they tried to have downtown merchants stay open later. They had a music venue every night, and it was all different kinds. I mean, they would have country and folk and rock and gospel and whatever. You know, they had some really good music venues. So I do think that's something that we do have to continue to push for. Something for, you know, not just that college age or young adult, but all the way down to youth activities for them to do. So yeah, no, that's a valid point. Unfortunately, I don't have a real strong answer for you, but I can just tell you that we're definitely thinking about it.
You might want to try the FFA, because those are high school kids. They're in a Farmers America. It's a chapter here in Washington County. Start there, and what types of agriculture endeavors would kids like that, they would know. We also have some friends that are raising goats, and they sell goat meat and cheese, sheep cheeses. Those are all agriculture tourism venues, and we've been there, we've seen a few of them. Those are kind of exciting. And to bring somebody in here and have what y'all been talking about, a ag tour, and bring in here, you get alpacas, you get the winery, you can see the vineyard. Okay, it's growing stuff. The goats, the sheep, even some beef cattle. We got some horse farms, Kentucky Derby races. We ain't broke here. There's things to do. If we tie them all together and put them into a cluster.
Sure. Absolutely.
Could somebody ever start a little canoeing business like on the Beach Fork if they just started with 3 or 4 canoes?
Yeah.
And
yeah, that was, I kind of mentioned earlier, adventure tourism, and there's been a push in Kentucky for trail towns. And these trail towns, they have bike paths. And of course, we get a lot of biking through this area. I can't think of what the bike route is called, but canoeing as well. Like I said, I've been to some other rural communities that are same size as this or smaller, and they actually have some businesses set up on rivers, and they have the canoes, and you rent them, and you take a 3-hour canoe ride, and they pick you up and take you back to your vehicle. And I think certainly something like that is something that we could do here. I don't see any reason why not, because we have the waterways, we have the scenery. It's just a matter of putting that together, and it runs through a lot of people's land, and so there are some issues to that, but that's certainly a component of the type of thing that we need to be doing, because when we talk about tourism, we want to attract visitors of all ages. Sure. So.
I think, as I look around the room, I may be the oldest living resident of this county. But I think agriculture as a whole in this community has really been a mover and driver of this entire economic development in this county for decades. It's good to see industry come to your community, but those people don't spend much money. Even the employees, most of them don't live here. They can drive in from other communities. They may pay some occupational tax and eat at a restaurant once or twice a week, but they don't give much back to the community or back to the economic capitals that we're looking for in the community. But agriculture has always been here. It's rock solid. It's not in decline in any way whatsoever. May have fewer farmers, but the ones that are there are so much more productive. I think a lot of people just love to come to this community because of the beauty of it. Ride through the countryside, look at the beautiful hillsides, the beautiful streams and the pastures, and it's just a beautiful place to just visit. It's just a very tranquil and beautiful community. I hear this from everybody. Everybody's moved here. Why'd you come here? Oh, I just came here one time. I drove through. It's just the most beautiful place I've ever seen. I just love the people, the hospitality, the commitment to family, and it's a community that's dotted with churches in every neck of the woods, everywhere. They're God-fearing people and all that's driven from their roots, from their agricultural roots, I do believe. I think it's rock solid here, and it'll be here when everything else is gone. When the factories are deteriorated and they're depreciated out and they go to someplace else, agriculture will always be here. Always has been, and it'll always be here. And I've got a lot of friends throughout all of Kentucky, from Cheney's Dairy Barn in Bowling Green, a highly successful agritourism stop right there, just outside of Bowling Green. Visit Boyd's Orchard up in Versailles. Just great destination for kids, and or Divines up here off of 127 out of Harrisburg. I think he told me last year he had over 11,000 kids that visited his farm last fall. And they've only been in business just a few years up there, highly successful. And so these kids love to get out and see where it's coming from and get their feet dirty and just be a part of the agricultural movement. I mean, it's great to do. And we even just sitting at a Rotary meeting today, we had a girl sit at the table. She said, I've always lived in the city. I just never get out of town much. But then she's kidding you, but anyway, this guy called me about a cow. She had never touched a cow, but just no big deal. But she said, something I just would love to kind of do, but if had the opportunity to do it. But I think agriculture is alive and well here. There's lots of opportunities out there for agritourism for sure. Just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not exactly agritourism, but there's been a map put together and a potential tour of the Kentucky Holy Land, which includes Gethsemane and St. Catherine's and Loretto and Nazareth and the cathedral in Bardstown and St. Rose and a number of churches. So, I mean, money could be made by simply encouraging people from other parts of Kentucky or beyond to come on and check out our religious history, you know?
Well, and perhaps we could even tie them together. You could have agriculture stops on the way, make an attraction route.
Yeah, so
Think of a
you,
jazzy name for it, Daniel.
I'll work on that.
yeah, that's what you need.
I'll get back to you.
Or your son Greg, he's good on jazzy names too. But yeah, you need a jazzy name, and you need somebody who has the courage to say, all right, I'm going to try organizing 4 of those this year and just see how it goes. Maybe I'll make some money. And if I don't, well, maybe I'll change it. But that the spirit of the entrepreneur is the person who's willing to go out on a limb a bit. And many of us want to be safe and make sure that paycheck's going to come every Friday. And boy, we're not going to take any chances. But some of the most interesting people in the world are the ones who've had a crazy idea and tried it, and they turn out to be Bill Gates.
Or pet rocks.
There we go.
Or pet rocks. Or, yeah.
Well, and it's like Judy said, you always need to revamp, revisit, reorganize from your marketing plan.
Right.
And so, and there's a good explanation on the agritourism website of how to build a marketing plan. There's a PDF they have out there that just gives you step by step what you need to do.
You know, that reminds me, on the 15th of this month, February, the Sisters of Loretto, the Dominican Sisters of Peace, the Nazareth Sisters, you know, all that in there, are having big open houses so people can come in and visit and see. You might wonder what's in those big houses that those women live in. But this is a really good chance for you to do that from 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 on February the 15th. You know, so, and somebody could organize that into kind of a, if they want to make some money, they could get on the bus and go from one to the other. So I'm just inviting you if you don't have anything to do that afternoon. Okay.
Any other insights or comments? How about the young man in the back there? You look like you've been really paying close attention to all this. Are you an agricultural entrepreneur yourself?
No, I'm just a farmer. I'm just listening to
What do you mean, just a farmer? What do you mean, just a farmer? Farmers have to be some of the smartest people in the world to make a farm work.
And even the new Amish, you know, you folks in the Amish that come, I've been to Holmes County, Ohio, where you folks came from. Beautiful destination there. And it reminded me so much of Washington County. The rolling hills, and it looked very much like it. So I see what your attraction was here. So, but so many people just love to get out and see your all's way of life and the way you farm, and that could be a wonderful destination right there. So, very close to the winery, so.
Mayor Wakefield, do you have any insights you want to add to the conversation?
Well, you know, farming is near and dear to my heart because I work for the Farm Service Agency. And so I've been working with them for 21 years, so I am a huge supporter of farming and agribusiness, and that's where I met Mr. and Ms. Karshner when I worked at the local office out here when they first came in, when you were starting your grape production. And at the time, I guess we offered our NAP coverage for you. That was insurance to cover the actual produce. At the time, hopefully you didn't need it, but we do offer programs for producers. I mean, we offer a safety net. And of course, you know, we were at one time provided the safety net for our tobacco producers, and of course the federal government, we had a tobacco buyout, And so we tried to find ways for alternative crops, different ways of doing farming, and we had several people that went into tomato production, flowers, more different types of vegetables. I don't work here at the local office anymore, and so I don't know if those producers are still producing those particular crops. So a lot of producers decided to put their money into beef production. I don't think anybody started a dairy herd around here. Most of our dairy herds have gone now, but it is time to start looking at other ways of producing other products, locally grown products, and getting the word out that we do have a lot of different products that we offer here in Springfield and Washington County.
Sure.
And that makes me think, when you say vegetables, if you want to venture into agritourism in a very gentle and small way, we're trying to get the Springfield Farmers Market up and running again next summer, and we're looking for more vendors. So if you're good at growing things, but you've never tried to make any money on that, a good way to start is grow something or some things that you can sell at Farmers Market and see how you do. You're not going to lose much, and you might make several $1,000s, and that can give you a step into a next level. So there are a lot of different ways of coming at the agritourism field that I just think it could be a wonderful addition to this community to have several more folks step up and say, I'm going to try it. Maybe I won't make it, but there's a good chance I will. And with all these agencies available to help, there's a much better chance that people can succeed. Well, we thank you one and all for being here tonight in a very special way. We thank Daniel and Ann and Judy for excellent presentations and insights.